2020 webinar.
I don't know what happened. Sorry, my volume this side is not okay. I can't hear you. I've switched on my speaker. It's B speaking.
Hi, B. You may need to go out and come back again.
That's what I've done. I've just signed out and I'll do that again.
Yeah, okay.
See.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 19th of May 2020 webinar. We Connect International in South Africa is continuing to partner with Procter and Gamble to give you these amazing topics on webinars. Today, we are covering sales and sales strategy. And we have Mangi Mudau from P&G. He's an associate director, an expert in sales, who's going to be walking us through some of the strategies that he works on. I'm going to hand straight over to Mikhail, but before I do that, if I can just please ask everyone to have their videos off to help us with reception and to please ask your questions in the Q&A. Mikhail will be taking note of all the questions that are there and will be stopping and pausing to make sure that Mangi sees and hears your questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're delighted to start now. So over to you, Mikhail.
Thank you, Jean. Hi, everyone. My name is Mikhail. I'm the Media Purchasing Manager at P&G. I also manage BEE from a preferential procurement perspective and help on corporate citizenship, hence why I work so closely with Jean and We Connect. So just to reiterate what Jean said, can you ask your questions in the chat box, and I will be relaying these to Mangi throughout the session, and we'll be touching on Q&A soon. Mangi, hand over to you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Mangi Mudau, and let me just go to my presentation. Right. I hope the slide, and then Mikhail, let me know if you can see the slide so that I go through. It's always a pleasure to. Is it?
Yes, it's great.
My name is Mangi Mudau. I'm South African, married with 2 kids. Have been with P&G for the past, I think, 24 years now. I've had a number of roles, but just in broad terms, I've been a team in the group manager for market strategy and planning. And at the moment, I sit on the local board and I'm associate director. My biggest passion, other than family, is just capability building and developing talent, just ensuring that the wonderful talent that we have at P&G is harnessed, and then also creating a diverse and enabling environment, because I just think diversity in its format, be it gender diversity or diversity of thinking, is such a big enabler for our country and our company. And what I can, the concept of winning with an objective that we all have, and then win the strategy, because I tend to find people confusing the two. We're going to have a great time. It's an hour of things that, in fact, is about, but I think the context is what matters. And here for the day, right? And I've broken them down into 4 objectives. One is just talking about knowing your business or your customer and knowing them intimately. The second one is a very important concept, and if you were to forget everything today, I would appreciate if you could just keep in mind features versus benefits, right? I'll then take you through some 6 important customer account facts. As I said, it could be stuff that perhaps the context could be different. And then I end my presentation through some key success factors. Assist me halfway down a few questions. In the event where perhaps you feel that the question cannot wait, it's a safe environment, feel free to through to Carl, who will pass it over to myself. Right? Start, I think it is important that we know our business, right? And I think knowing your business makes it possible threefold. One is that you are able to specific means, for instance, right, of developing a benefit for the business. The second one is that you're able to gather the right information because I find that day and age where we are faced and bombarded with all types of information, it is very easy to either land with the wrong information or to be in possession of information that is not going to help you drive your top line, your bottom line, shareholder return, or shared value for that matter. So the type of information, I think, is critical. The third bit is how do we measure success? Because if you don't understand measures, you'll have a problem. If you don't measure stuff, you have a problem. So it's important that not only we measure stuff, but we also understand how success is measured. The first slide is about features and benefits, and I think a feature is a characteristic in my view, right? It describes the character of something. Whereas a benefit on the one hand is an advantage that you gain from something, and I'm just going to give you the of a bottle. You take a bottle, the features of the bottle are that it could be made, which is great. It has a lid. It could be other features could be that it is cylindrical in shape, right? The one hand is the benefit that you gain is that the bottle allows you to hold water in whichever form you are able to hold water, that the water will not spill. It is easy to find given the fact that you've chosen a very luminous color red, right? And if another feature is that it is cylindrical in shape, the better that you are able to maximize the merchandising on shelf, and as a result, you are able to enhance, I think, your profit per square footage. So in business, people spend a lot of time describing characteristics and features, whereas they should be, in fairness, talking about. Let me give you another wonderful continent, Africa, where one of the features is that we are endowed with natural resources, be it platinum in South Africa, be it wildlife in East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, or maybe oil in Nigeria. All of these are characteristics. Only when we turn these resources and exploit them to create infrastructure and to improve the lives of Africans in the continent, that gold, a lot of platinum turns into a benefit. So in your businesses, you need to sit back and say, what benefit am I offering to my customer, right? I'm able to explain clearly the service that I offer, the characteristics of the service that I offer if you are in the service business. I'm able to explain my product, its characteristics, what it is made of, right? But what is the benefit? And you need to spend a disproportionate amount of time talking the benefit to the customer. Reasons why I say that is because we live in days where things are changing fast. The consumer. So what it means is that the benefit that you offer easily become redundant, or consumers or your customers fall out of favor, or your competitor can simply replicate that. So there's a need for you to ensure two things. One, that your benefit is sustainable. What are sustained economic benefit? And that you keep check of the benefit over time and you finesse it. If you don't finesse it, there's a likelihood that you lose your customer. So this concept is key. And I think as you perhaps stay at home today, or if you are reflecting, sit back and say, in my business, I understand the features or the product that I offer, but do I really understand the benefit of my service or my product, my customer? And is this benefit a competitive advantage? Number one. Number two is that sustainable.
So
right?
this is
Number three is that is it noticeable to the customer?
Procter and Gamble, where they are basically teaching about.
I think that there's someone in the. I'll proceed. So this is. There's a question on the concept of feature versus benefit. Pick out something today in your home and say, this is a feature and what is the benefit, and you'd be amazed at what you're able to put through on the table. Remember, the split should be 70-30 in favor of the benefit. Benefit is the overriding objective that you should drive all the time. I'm going to move on to the next slide. where they say the features of people must know about the service or the product that you have, right? But the benefits must sell, right? Some of my colleagues go to an extent of saying the benefits of the product should not, but they should serve, right? So, friends and colleagues, important. This concept of feature of benefit, just internalize it because it can help you grow your business further, right? On to the second part of my presentation, where I've identified what I consider to be 6 important customer account facts, right? And they could be 10, they could be 12. What I've just done is I've decided to narrow down to a list that is manageable. You could add a list as you want, but this is a list that I felt, makes sense for now, right? So you must understand the organizational decision-making structure of your business. You must understand their objectives and strategies, right? Innately so. You must understand the policies of your customers, right? You must understand their current conditions, and I think we're going to have an interesting discussion on that, especially in the context of COVID-19, on how current conditions can alter relationship with your customer. You must understand the evaluation of how they your product or service and how they measure satisfaction in the process. You must also understand systems, especially when you are often plugged into the customer system. It's important that you understand how the customer system is intertwined. One on each of these and talk them, right? And the first one is decision-making structures, and it boils down to the organogram. Do you understand the organogram, right? If you don't understand the organogram of your customer, I think you have an issue, right? And with you understanding the organogram, by the way, right? Do you understand the people behind the organogram? Because often there's a face, but there are people that you cannot see. Take the time to understand the names of people on the organogram and those that you cannot see, the hidden characters that are often very, very powerful, right? Roles that people play in a business. You know, there's a concept called PACE. And if you have a pen and a piece of paper, I'd like you to just write down the following words, which is P, A, C, and E. P stands for process owner, and then the authority, and then C is contributor, and then E is evaluator. So it's an acronym PACE, right? But in a business, you'd find that there are people whose role is to own manage processes, right? They're not decision makers, but they manage processes. It's important that you understand them. Secondly, authority are those that take the decisions ultimately. So the buck stops with people. They are the ones that often sign off, and they are the ones that often take a yay or no-go decision, right? Contributors who, before a decision is taken, they contribute, right? They give perspective, they shape the outcome of this decision, and that's why they are known as contributors. In the end, you have people that are called evaluators that are also very powerful. Once the decision has been taken, they tend to evaluate the decision, right? So the A could take a decision and they could evaluate it very differently. And it's not often that you are able to pick all of these people at once, but you are likely to pick 75%, 55%, right? But often when an organization takes a decision, I can assure you that that decision is not taken by one singular individual. There's either a process owner in the process, there is the authority, the one that takes the final decision, there's the one that contributes, and there's the one that evaluates the decision. And it's important that you understand these roles, right? Innately so. Another one is things like working hours, are important because there are people who prefer, for instance, that you should not engage with them after working hours. There are those that prefer to work early in the morning. And I want to give you an example of a colleague of mine that was managing a customer in the US. And he said, Mangi, I noticed that these guys have a tendency every Friday of having lunch. And often it is the entire lead team. And I knew the only way I could speak to certain people in an informal way was during lunch. So every Friday I went to their offices during lunch. And one day I met the very guy who I have been wanting to meet for many, many months. And needless to say that the PA was not keen on securing me an appointment. So you need to be able to understand what works, what working hours does your account use, etc., etc. I give you a customer of mine who during the week it is very difficult to get them to do stuff because they are busy. They get into the office at 6 in the morning. They are in meetings back to back. But, I know that on Saturday between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, they are in the office trying to do the stuff, right? And I have decided if I want stuff gets done, I call this guy on a Saturday in the morning. And I'm amazed at what I'm able to achieve on a Saturday morning during the week when I'm under pressure. To say that perhaps I'll be able to give you feedback on a Saturday versus during the week. You'll have to wait. Direct numbers, it is just courtesy that you don't find out somebody's direct numbers or my mobile numbers and call them directly. You might want to find out from the PA and say, you know, is Mangi very keen that you call him directly on his mobile number? Of course, if my mobile number is a signature on my email address, that's a different discussion. If my mobile numbers are on my business card, it's a different discussion. Feel free to call. But it is understand that you find out how do I reach these people directly, either in the offices or in their mobiles. The next step, understanding the customer's objectives. And I think, you know, this is the heart of these factors. I call it customer strategy alignment. Do you understand the strategy of your customer? Right? Number one. Number two is that do you know what plans the customer has to achieve those objectives? And then you need to spend time, I think, in understanding the strategy. And this can be frustrating at times because customers aren't very keen to divulge strategies, right? Some strategies are, you can pick them easily. They are available for everybody to customers hold very dearly and they barely share them because it is a competitive advantage. If you that the customer is willing to share over time, when the relationship improves, they're able to take you into confidence on other aspects of their strategies. So spend time understanding your customer strategy and also understand how they intend achieving that strategy. If one of your customers wants to in the next 3 years, you need to understand how they intend doing that. Do they intend doing it by hiring more people, by building more, for instance? Do they bring in more brands? Do they want to price more? How do they want to do it? Because this mechanic, this activity system will allow you to plug into the strategy of the company, and your relationship with your customer will be enhanced and you'll be able to give value and you'll be able to succeed going forward. The third fact is the issues around policies, right? You must know the policies and the reasons behind the policies. And I give an example of stewardship, which is doing things right. I'm finding that, and especially in our continent, the regulatory framework is improving so much that you want to be seen to be doing the harder things right and the easier things wrong. Especially when you run your own business, you are entrepreneurs, you want to ensure that you do things right all the time. That said, you also want to understand the policies of your perhaps that are closer to home. I know certain customers who don't want to have meetings during weekends except when it's in the office. They are not very keen on having meetings in the golf course. That said, there are some customers meetings in the golf course because they find it to be a very informal environment outside of the constraints of the office. And you need to understand these nuances. There are customers who don't accept gifts irregardless of the size. And there are those that say if a gift is less than $15, less than 250 South African rand, don't accept it. Or if you accept it, you've got to take that gift and take it to the HR department. And it's important that you understand that. And the policies do not only center around the stewardship, but I find stewardship is the bedrock, because once you get stewardship right, a lot of the other policies are much easier to understand. Get caught up in having either flouted certain policies, etc., etc. So take time in understanding policies, ask questions, and ensure you immerse yourselves, especially policies, in my view, that have to do with stewardship, doing things right, because you'd rather, as I said, do things right and do the easier things wrong. The fourth is identify the customer's problems and needs, right? We often think that customers don't have problems and that you know, they don't have needs, but we all know that every business has got challenges. They just happen to call them different things. Right? If you go to certain customers' problems, they cut to the chase. They don't blow it up. Some customers say problems are challenges. Some customers say, you know, we have a small issue. But all of these are synonyms. At the end of the day, customers do have problems that need to be solved. And this is where you come in, by either offering a service or by offering a product, right? And by offering a benefit, by the way. Remember what we said earlier. But benefits sell and they serve. So you need to be in a position to identify the customer's problems and needs and solve them. We do business in a VUCA, and you would have a VUCA, which is a volatile and complex environment, right? Change every, people are connected. The tastes and habits of your shoppers and your customers change. There are new inventions every day. And it's in this context that you guys should understand and be on top of the problems of your customers. And needless to say that these problems are not static, by the way. They change with time. I mean, if we had had this webinar 6 months ago, we would have spoken of VUCA outside of the context of COVID-19. COVID-19, in my view, has a very interesting dynamic that allows you to reflect and say, what are my customers' problems today, and how will they be after the effects of COVID, right? And how do I think I will tailor, for instance, the benefit of my product to ensure that I remain relevant, that I'm able to, continue offering sustained competitive advantage for my service or for my product. You will suffer from what I call the leaking bucket effect, where you keep increasing the number of customers that you have, but the trick is increasing the number of customers that you have, but having a significant portion that you are able to keep over an extended period of time. So spend time in understanding the needs and problems of your customers, but also look at the environment in which your customer does business. Be it geopolitical, be it economic, be it social, and then mirror that with the product and the service that you offer. And you will do yourself good in that regard.
So Mangi, I think we can start a few questions here.
Yeah, okay.
Great. And I think just backtracking a little bit to your stewardship point, maybe it's just a clarification that with regards to that $15 limit, I think you said any gifts less than $15, and it was meant to be clarified that it's more than $15. You disclose, you don't accept, and things.
Yeah. And I think this is where companies will tell you what they want and what they don't want, and take the opportunity, for instance, to understand that. I know that with our own company, Procter and Gamble, at all. At some point, I think you could accept a gift to the tune of 150 South African rand, and you needed to go declare that with HR. So these are stewardship policies that vary by company, and it's upon you as owners of businesses so that you should not be caught in the crossfire, so to speak.
Okay, and one of the questions we have here is, how do small women-owned businesses get to understand the organograms of large corporates such as Procter and Gamble?
You'd be amazed at the power of asking, right? I've been, by the way, online, and you can do it yourself into organizations. I'm not saying that it's easy. I know the challenges that are, you know, entrepreneurs, especially small business women. The challenges are unbelievable. But I think find it in the public, go ask, right? Go ask. Uh, Say, I want to understand how your business is structured, because the more I understand of your makeup, the better a supplier I be. And at times I've found if you don't ask, you don't get. At times you will get everything that you want. At times you will get half the ask, but better ask if the information is not readily available. Right? Unashamed.
Great, and I think this would be a follow-up question to that. Sometimes it's very difficult to reach the right people in order to get engaged with the organization. How would you advise on dealing with these gatekeepers who may block the connections and the decision makers from engaging with you?
Yeah, and you know, at times we give you webinars like these, and you sit back and say, what is this guy talking about? I've had my experiences, and it's very, very difficult. There are realities where there are gatekeepers to manage, but if you spend enough time in mapping your customer, what we call account mapping, and even developing these gatekeepers, I think with your supplier, might take longer. But hey, I think it's worth the effort, right? I remember there were times where I wanted to have meetings with certain people, right? Because you want to penetrate your customer and then speak to the right decision makers. And I would be calling the gatekeeper and saying, may you set up, you know, an appointment with Mr. Keen, because the gatekeeper did not know me. It was only when I started first developing a relationship with the gatekeeper, and when I called the gatekeeper, my call was different. So I would call the gatekeeper. How? If I wanted to meet Mr. XYZ, how would you suggest I go about doing it? Right? So I don't assume because I'm a supplier that I have entitlement, because her job as gatekeeper is to do exactly that, right? To ensure that there are Chinese walls between yourself and I think spend time on account penetration. It can be frustrating, but once you crack it, it's okay. Develop relationships with these gatekeepers, and I find do it in a way that is ethical, that does not put you in a tough spot, right? And I'm of the view that at times, if you are being tested, doing things that are against your values, I'd rather walk away, right? But spend time developing that relationship, because over time it does open up, and you'd be amazed at what a little bit of patience can do.
Great, and I think I just want to add some perspective from my side, because I am in procurement and supplier facing quite a lot. And I think the perspective I wanted to add in is that everyone on this call at the moment is in a better position to reach those gatekeepers in different companies because you work with WeConnect or you're part of the WeConnect database. Large companies like us as Procter and Gamble work with WeConnect for this particular reason, to so that we can interact over calls like this. You can reach out to G or other people in WeConnect, and that's how you get access to some of the bigger corporates as well, with regard to actually dealing with the gatekeepers and things like that.
Absolutely.
And, Mangi, there's another question coming back to your discussion on PACE. Can you give an example of how PACE is used in PNGSA with regards to decision making, approving certain processes, maybe making very big changes that cause a very big dynamic shift afterwards? How is PACE enforced in the Procter and Gamble South Africa organization?
Yeah, it is part of how we do business. And let me give you a classic example. If, say, we want to go to market or we want to launch a particular brand, and then they ask my views on how we think we should launch it in the South African retail environment. I'm a contributor in that decision, because the decision to launch, my job is to contribute, right? And I will give them my perspective on how best we can launch things to we can go to market differently, for instance. Things that we need to optimize in we are on shelf fast and ahead of competition. So I spend a lot of time contributing. Even if I'm not happy with the fact that the launch is happening in September, that is it. The fact that it's happening in September is not my decision. I need to respect that. I need to focus on the question that was asked, which is, Mangi, how do you think that we can improve the go-to-market on this particular launch that is happening in September? Even if I know that September is not necessarily the best time to launch, because, you know, Christmas is around the corner, your customers are preparing for, you know, they are focused on Christmas and they're not necessarily keen on their new lines. I will raise it to my team and say, guys, September is not the right time, but it's your decision. However, let me tell you how to improve the go-to-market. So you need to accept that you will not always make decisions all the time. There are times where you make decisions. There are times where you contribute. There are times where people need to respect the process. Otherwise, it falls apart, right? As human beings, I think we want to become everything. Become the guy that makes, evaluates the decision, the guy that contributes, because that is how we are wired. But you need to sit back and say, my place is, I'm the authority. I'm going to listen to everybody's perspective. At the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I will make a decision after having listened to everybody else. This is the A. When I'm the contributor, I will give you my feedback, but you, because I'm not the A, right? When I'm an evaluator, I will look at the decision that you have taken. I'll reference the decision to what has been done in the past. I will raise whatever risks that are available, and then I'll leave it to the A and the authority, I think, to take a final decision. In order for PACE to work, it must be respected. An atmosphere of respect to the process must exist. Otherwise, I think it falls apart.
Thanks, Mangi. And I think that's all the questions we had for now. We'll move on to you completing the discussion that you had prepared. Just a reminder to everyone else to continue sending your questions through to the chat.
The last bit is about how do systems work, right? This is particularly relevant to if you are, for instance, plugged into a supplier's database. You need to understand how the systems work. For instance, uses they are on SAP and you are on a local hybrid version. You need to understand how is there going to be an interface between what I'm trying to offer versus what the does. And when I say systems, I'm not only limiting the discussion to IT systems alone. I'm talking procurement systems, right, within the company. How does P&G procure stuff, right? How does we pay women-owned businesses? I mean, what is the system of pay? Do I just bring an invoice and then leave it at reception in a white envelope and expect that I'll be paid in 48 hours? I need to understand how P&G does that. So spend a lot of time understanding these systems and immersing them. I find it's better at times to work in tandem with the systems than to work against the systems. There's nothing wrong in having a healthy satisfaction to the status quo, but you know, if an organization as big as 180 odd years has, even myself, Mangi Mudau, that has spent 24 years with the company, will change the systems. So best if I understand how the systems work, and I work in tandem. It does not only refer to IT, it refers to all aspects of the company, be it procurement, marketing, production, if there's any, but just how do the systems of the company work. Right? I just want, as I said, I could have added more, but I think these are overriding. Take time in understanding your decision-making structure. Yeah.
I don't think we touched on point number 5.
Number 5, the evaluation of the service. Okay, bear with me. Very important service indeed. How do you evaluate the service? So you need to learn how the service is doing for the customer. In other words, the service that you offer, how is it doing? And then you also have to understand how the account evaluates the performance. And I'm glad that we came back to this because it is critical. You know, often you go out as small business owners and you secure clients or customers. And if you don't understand how your service is doing with the customer, you're going to have one of two outcomes. One is you're going to have a nasty surprise when people come to you and say, we are unhappy about the service that you've been offering over the last 5 years, right? Or they will say to you, somebody has just come on board and they are offering a service that is 10 times better than yourself. So I think it is important and how the service that you offer is doing with the customer. It goes back to the discussion we had about the benefit, right? If you offer a benefit that enables you to offer sustained competitive advantage with the customer, you are less likely going to have an issue, right? So please take time in understanding. You get feedback, and you know, I believe that feedback is a gift. I'd rather that I get the gift early than to get it, you know, at the end of the contract. So ask people, are you happy with my service? How is it doing? How is it benefiting? The benefits that I espoused, you know, when I said these systems are going to allow you to reduce your credit notes, I promised you that my package was going to improve your debtors collection process. How is it doing? Tell me, right? And I find when some people are uncomfortable in asking that because they think, is this one way of chucking myself out of the organization? No, it isn't. In fact, people care when you walk over to them and say, guys, can you give me feedback on how my service is doing? Because it shows that you are committed to the principle of continuous improvement, that you want to improve that service. And it shows that you embrace and you value feedback, because feedback is a gift, right? If you don't embrace feedback, people will not give you feedback. People will just serve you with ultimatums to say that we're no longer interested, for instance, with your service. Spend time also in understanding how the account evaluates the performance of the service. In other words, what measures do they use to evaluate? Because, and this is where the rubber hits the road, right? It could be that you add perspective on them to enhance measures. It could even help you to change your product offering. So the benefit that you offer is in tandem, is in line with the measures that they use. So get feedback on your service, and if it's great, it's fantastic. Don't go back after 36 months. It's got to be a regular drumbeat, whether it's a quarterly drumbeat, a 6-monthly drumbeat, but you've got to just ask people how the service is doing with a customer. And then secondly, you need to evaluate the performance by understanding the measures, right? This is the one critical factor, in my view, that if not well managed, can give you surprises when people ultimately say, hey, we are very unhappy with the service, and you just haven't delivered on you know, the promises made, right? The promises that you made were not delivered. Thank you. Any other question on this?
So Mangi, I think we'll go ahead and we'll come to the questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay. So this is just a summary of the 6 important customer account facts. I'd like to just spend maybe the next 10, 15 minutes talking the last bit, which is some key success factors that I've also, noted, right? One of the key success factors is that you've got to have an updated database of your clients, of your customers, right? And when I say updated, I mean, you've got to update the mundane stuff, starting from, is the organogram still the same organogram? Have the numbers changed? Do I have the right contact details, etc.? And for those of you that offer businesses that allow you to plug into the customer system, you need to spend a lot of time on data security, because I'm finding a lot of companies are very wary these days. Data security is a key issue, right? And I think post-COVID, data security is going to be an overriding discussion that will be on the table every time you engage with your customers, right? They would want to understand, how secure is the data that you offer. We've seen examples lately of huge companies that had not invested in people working from home, for instance. And when people switched to these tools like Teams and Google and Zoom, etc., they were taken by surprise by the level of insecurity that was experienced during the communication process. So data security, in my view, is the next big focus. This factor is that you need to develop observation skills. Companies go through changes, and I think some of these changes are forced upon by geopolitical changes or social changes. I gave an example of COVID earlier on, and I said COVID-19 is going to change how we do business for big companies as small companies, women-owned businesses, and entrepreneurs. No doubt, some aspects are going to change. So you need to be observing your customer for now and saying, a change, right? Is there gaps in their strategies? Am I seeing a change in their product offering? And you need to be observant. Being observant means you need to be plugged in, right? You need to see your customer as, frankly speaking, as a book that has to be studied on an ongoing basis. It is not an event. And there are some things that you can see from the background. You don't have to be in the offices every day. You can see a change in culture. I give you an example of one of my customers. What they did is they were a promotion from within company. So you would join in and they would promote you right up until, say, CEO. And then they decided to change the process by recruiting people at the top, at CEO level. And the people at the were very worried because they kept on saying, I joined the company with the hope of becoming CEO. I knew that I would have to go step 1, 2, 3 to become CEO. But you guys have brought in someone from Mangi Mudau Enterprises to become CEO who does not understand our values, who doesn't understand how we do business. I started observing how disillusioned the rest of the management team, especially the middle and senior managers, were. I could see that they were not happy with the strategy that was being implemented. I could see that at some time they cared less. They were no longer passionate because they were saying, what's the point of me joining the company and for 20 years with the hope that I become CEO, somebody gets brought in from the top. So I began to observe all of these things, and I was able to inform, I think, my colleagues back at the office on how we should change our strategy because I was going through a transition that requires to be noted. So these observation skills are things that are important. Watch them. Watch your customers, and it is only when your relationship is that close that you can see this change. The third one is talk to people in the industry, and I know that it sounds easy, but you've got to develop networks. There's a big distinction between developing networks and pursuing, is there a difference? Because the two are almost similar. But I think what distinguishes networks from politics, so to speak, are the type of values that you choose, you pursue. There are people who you network with, and I think you would want to keep these values, right? And there are people who perhaps it's beneficial to network with them, but their values are not necessarily in line with yours. So I think the distinguishing factor when I network for me is, am I networking with someone whose values are compatible to mine? And once I'm able to tick a box, I'm happy, right? So for me, the distinguishing factor is the value system and the culture. Once these two factors, as opposed to becoming two ends of the same continent, I would walk away from that networking opportunity. I close the door and I say, let me go look for another networking opportunity elsewhere. Because once the values are aligned, is know the people and how they are evaluated, right? You know, I used to sit with my customers, and as they are talking, I would be, listening, but I had my own agenda to drive. It took me a while to sit back and say, I really need to understand how my customers are evaluated. So every year when we do joint business plans, I sit with them and I said, guys, how are you going to be evaluated this year? What is important in your life in 2020? And you hear them saying, no, Mangi, from 78 to 25. In other words, when I order 100 from P&G, I expect you to deliver 100, not to deliver 95. I want to investment in my business by 10%. Because once I tick green on these things, Mangi, I'm able to earn my bonus and I'll be able to take my kids to school. It was only when I understanding this link on how customers work, that customers are human beings like me and you. They also have measures. You need to understand those measures. You will not necessarily agree with the measures all the time, but do understand how you are evaluated. So, for example, on reducing the days on hand. If P&G says we want to sell 3 times more in the next 3 months, and it is going to lead to the days on hand going from 100 days to 150. Already my corporate objective is not in line with the objective of my customer. So I need to find a sweet spot, because he is not going to increase his day to 150. He's not, right? He's simply going to tell me to walk away. I have to go back to P&G, manage expectations, or I need to come back with a plan that says, hey, 3 times the stock, improve the stock 10. Here's a plan. And at the end of the day, you would have reduced your days on hand from, say, your 75 to about your 25. The moral of the story is that take time in understanding how your customer is evaluated. You might not necessarily agree with all of it, but understanding, because with understanding comes a. The last key success factor is, strong communication skills. I've always felt that we all are born with a certain measure of communication skills. The difference, some people are fantastic communicators, and some people are unfortunately very poor communicators. And I think the measure of a strong communicator, in my view, is if you are able to align the strategy of your customer and your own strategy. And if you, as women-owned business, are able to benefit the product that you offer to the customer, that is success. Not but the product and the service that you offer. Right? In conclusion, let me recap on the objectives. We just talked briefly around knowing your business 101. I did embrace the feature versus benefit concept, because I think it is important. Example about the bottle. The bottle is cylindrical in shape. That's a feature. But that bottle allows me to merchandise effectively on shelf. I'm there to improve my profit metric. That's a benefit, right? So take the opportunity, go home today and say, of the services that I'm offering to P&G or other companies, or the brands that I'm offering, what are the features and what are the benefits? And remember, features tell about your product, but the benefits sell. And in the days of COVID-19, they must save. Customer account facts, understanding the organogram right up until understanding the customer. And in conclusion, we touched on a few key success factors. The last one being the ability to communicate effectively, especially to communicate the benefit that you offer as a woman. Thank you ever so much. I just wanted to leave a time for us to take a few questions if there are any. I didn't have to have a lot of slides. I just picked up what I thought would help you. Things that you know, but perhaps the context was a bit different.
Great. Thanks, Mangi. And I think we'll go to a few questions now that I have in the chat here. One of them is, when engaging with a new customer, which one of the 6 important customer account facts should a company prioritize?
I've always felt I'm a continuous improvement, right? In other words, even in arithmetic, we're told it's best if you start from 0 to 5. If you have not, in my view, mapped your customer well, you don't have organogram well enough to know who does what, you have a problem. So I think, understanding the organogram, the roles that people play, mapping your customer, I would prioritize that, because you don't want to be, and this is where we waste, we come across chance takers. You come to P&G and then, Mangi Mudau says, I'm the MD, and he's not. And you spend 90% of the time talking to Mangi Mudau, and after 6 months, you realize that I'm talking to the wrong guy. I'm in understanding who makes the decision, take that, tear it apart. I think you would have done a good due diligence.
Thanks, Mangi. Another question here comes back to your separation of features and benefits. And can you give an example of features and benefits using P&G products to kind of drive that separation and make it a bit more visual as to something that we can see how P&G uses this in their products?
I think there could be mothers in the room. If there are, we always appreciate the fact that I have a lot of respect for working moms that run businesses, especially have kids. You have to work hard the whole day, and you have to come home and ensure that the family fires are burning. So when you have kids that are using diapers, you have to find them a brand that works, right? A brand whose features, say that brand is Pampers, right? It has cloth-like sheet, right? It has got channels, so able to wee and poo, able to see a lot of leakages. It has animal features around it. When the kid looks at the feature of an elephant, etc. It does something to the child's mind. All those are features. Are able to have an interrupt for 8 to 9 hours. I have a diaper that allows me, after a long day's work, uninterrupted. So the feature of Pampers is that when you touch it, it's got a cloth-like back sheet, channels, right? And got enough gel that is best in class in the market. Those are all features. The benefit is what gain do you derive? Sleep, and my baby wakes up in the middle of the night because the diaper is leaking. That's the problem. So the feature are the characteristics or the traits of the product. The benefit is the consumer noticeable benefit. Your baby is not going to have a rash. Your baby sleeps for 8 to 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. The example of a feature as well as a benefit. And I could give an example of our brands. We spend a lot of time bring a brand into the marketplace. We ask ourselves the question, what is the consumer noticeable benefit, right? We can describe a pack of always that it's XYZ, but does it offer the protection that requires? Yes or no? So these are questions that we take very seriously.
And there's another question asking on how does P&G South Africa evaluate their suppliers? And I think if you're okay with it, it's something that I can answer because it's a process that I'm involved with.
Go ahead, Mika. Yeah.
So P&G generally evaluates its suppliers in many different ways according to what task the supplier is performing. I think it's very important prior to starting any work for any company or any customer to align beforehand on what your scope of work and objectives are, as Mangi touched in one of the 6 important customer account facts. Align on what the objectives are and also align on what metrics will be used in evaluating so that one, you can deliver on the objectives of what you need to be doing, and 2, you can ensure that you touch on these metrics as well and actually bring those to light in the work that you're doing to show that if it's agility, how agile you are in the market and things like that. And I think just one more question that we have, Mangi, it is a famous sales quote is either run the day or the day runs you. How do you as a sales expert run the day?
There's is that days are different, right? The only thing that we have equally is that there are 24 hours in a day. And in instances where the day runs me, it's okay. As long as I run the day 80% of the time, I'm fine, right? Over an extended period of time. Because if we sit here and say we are going to run every single day in our lives, it is not real, right? It is perhaps a good objective to set, but days are different. And there are times where days have ran like a saddle, and I've accepted that, and I've said, okay, it has not been good. The trick lies in planning my days and accepting when things go well, right? Once you're content with that, you'll be okay. There'll never be a time where you will run all day. Some days have to run you because in that you learn a lot. The opposite is the case. When you're not running the day and the day is riding you like a saddle, I sit back and say, what has this taught me for the day, right? I then turn that negativity into what is the one thing that I can learn from this very tough day. And I've had instances where the day runs me, right? I wake up on my way either to a customer meeting. I'm stuck in traffic. I hadn't planned for. I miss my flight to Cape Town. I book myself on the wrong flight. I've had a number of days that run me. The tragedy is when you have more days running you than you running days. And you need to ensure that the swing is in favor of you, running more days, because we live in the real world here where things will happen.
Thanks, Mangi. And that touches on all the questions we have in the chat for this session. Jean, I'll hand back over to you.
Thank you so much. That's really great, Mangi. I want to really take the time to thank you. Your talk was highly informative. It was both thought-provoking and you gave us actions and insights. So thank you for that. For me, there are 2 actions: updated customer database. I will start working on that to make sure that we look at that, because there'll definitely be a COVID impact on some of those customers and what we think they're finding the solutions to some of their problems. I really liked that. So thank you so much. We will also, as we connect, help our clients to find the organograms. I really like the impact, let's get organograms so our women business owners get to see some of the people, the names of the people that they should be dealing with. So they're not chasing shadows. So thank you so much. As we said at the beginning, this is a partnership between WeConnect International and Procter and Gamble in South Africa. We agreed to 10 webinars, and this was just the second of the 10 webinars. So ladies, please keep an eye out for the other invites. We're going to be covering topics like cash flow management, workforce of the future, digital transformation, and much, much more. So we are right on time for 3 p.m. And thank you for everybody who joined. If there's anybody who joined who's not on the WeConnect South Africa database, please, please, please contact us. We would love to work with you and have you join our network. You can go onto our website, reconnectinternational.org, and self-register. Self-registration is free, and we want to welcome a lot more women into the network. Thank you so much to Mikau and especially to Mangi. We really appreciate your time and you sharing your expertise. Bye to everybody. Thank you so much. Stay safe.